Moving to White Rock comes with its own set of surprises, and some of them are absolute deal breakers if you're not prepared for them. You've probably heard of the really common issues that White Rock has to deal with, but there are 3 bigger challenges that can really impact your experience in living here. You've likely heard of the cell phone service. White Rock has some of the spottiest areas for cell service in the lower mainland, especially as you get closer to the waterfront. You've probably heard all about how hilly the terrain is in White Rock, so be ready to tackle steep hills if you're on foot. It's beautiful, but it's a workout. You're also going to have to deal with things like train noise. Living near the waterfront means that you'll hear train horns. It's part of the charm and can be a shock if you're not expecting it. And you've also probably heard about the older demographic in White Rock. White Rock attracts retirees, so the vibe here is a little quieter and a little slower compared to nearby areas. And you'll also notice that a lot of the shops cater to these older demographics as well. But we're not even talking about those today. We've got lots of videos on that in our Living in White Rock playlist, which you can certainly check out. We're going to talk about 3 of the bigger things that I absolutely wish that I knew before I moved to White Rock, so we can help you better prepare if you're thinking of relocating here as well. This way you can plan for these ahead of time so you don't end up living here being completely frustrated with your decisions. So stick around as I dive into the 3 things that I wish I knew about living in White Rock before I moved here right now. Well, not quite right now. My name is Darren with the German Group, and this channel is dedicated to everything Surrey, BC, White Rock, BC, and anything going on in the crazy world of British Columbia real estate, and there's always a lot of crazy stuff going on. So don't forget to subscribe. All right, so let me tell you about one of my first experiences living in White Rock when me and my wife first got together. This is many years ago now, but we rented a little house just on Victoria Avenue, right on the East Beach area, and it was just this beautiful little beach home. It was really, really cool, but there was a few problems that we experienced. Of course, we were excited to live at a beach. Who doesn't want to live 1 block away from a beautiful Pacific Coast beach? But the experience of living there wasn't really what we expected. You know, in the wintertime, it was amazing. It was a ghost town. It was like there was never anybody there. You had the sidewalks to yourself. You could go down to the beach with your dog. You could get to a coffee shop, no problem. It was a really nice way to live. But of course, after the winter, well, comes the spring and the summer, and it's a much, much different experience living there. The streets are absolutely jammed with cars. The sidewalks are absolutely packed with tourists, and it's almost impossible to not only get around, but also to enjoy some of the very reasons that you moved to White Rock in the first place. And that brings me to the first thing that I wish I knew, and that is the impact that the tourists have on the local residents that live there. Tourists can make or break your experience living here. From May to September, Marine Drive is packed, and it feels like the town belongs to visitors much more than it does to the locals. If you don't plan your daily errands or avoid key areas during peak tourist hours, you'll waste hours stuck in traffic or battling crowds. And of course, White Rock's a beautiful place to live, and the tourists are entitled to go there as well. So what can you do to make sure that you can be as best prepared for this as possible? Well, I've got 3 quick tips. Number 1, you're going to want to get very familiar with peak hours and off-peak hours and any of the shortcuts that the locals use to get around town. The next is you're probably going to make use of some of the less crowded stores that you can find in the neighboring community of South Surrey, which honestly has a lot more to choose from, generally speaking, as well. And you're going to do your absolutely best to know where the locals go, where the quiet spots are, so you can get away from some of that spring and summertime crazy tourism so you can actually enjoy the community that you live in. This is places like Centennial Park, the South Surrey Athletic Park, Crescent Park, Sunnyside Urban Acres Park, the list goes on. Living in South Surrey White Rock is anything but bad. But just be prepared that there's a lot of tourists coming in the summer months. Let's jump on to the next one. Parking is an absolute nightmare in White Rock. Between limited street parking throughout the entire community, needing parking passes to just even park in front of your own home, you've got resident-only zones and an incredibly high demand near the beach. Finding a spot to park your car can feel impossible, especially in the summer months. So if you're going to buy a property in White Rock and you don't buy one that has ample parking to support the needs of you and your family, you might end up completely frustrated, not only every time that you have to return home, but if you even choose to go visit White Rock Beach, which is one of the reasons that you went to live there. Living in White Rock, we weren't so worried about the parking at the time when we originally found this place on Victoria Street. However, whenever we had friends over, it was a monstrous issue to get them be able to park somewhere. And this is common for the residents all over town. But not only that, you want to go enjoy the beach as well. And Marine Drive, well, it can look like an absolute parking lot on a beautiful summer's day. Now, luckily they built a parkade called the West Beach Parkade, which has well over 200 parking spots. So that's just where you want to go first if you're going down to the beach. You don't want to try and park on Marine Drive. However, that's only if you're going down to the beach. What if you need some parking at your home? Well, White Rock residents can purchase annual parking permits that start at about $16 for designated permit parking only areas near their homes, and parking decals, which are about $59 for up to 4 hours of daily parking in pay parking zones like on Marine Drive. Permits and decals require proof of residency, however, and are valid for 1 calendar year, which means you need to go back to City Hall and get them, but they can be applied for both online and in person at City Hall. So what do you do if you need parking? And White Rock is expensive. I'm sure you know that already. So here are 3 tips to kind of help you navigate it a little bit better. You're going to want to look for homes that have driveways or garages that are going to fit your family's vehicle needs to avoid reliance on parking on the street. As I mentioned, you're going to want to invest in a resident parking pass for key zones, which is a pretty good deal if you ask me. And being a local, you're not only going to want to learn where the less used parking spots are, but also where the free parking spots are in the city of White Rock. So this brings us on to number 3, and this is one I certainly want to make sure that you're prepared for, because I don't want it to cost you a bunch of money. And speaking of costing a bunch of money, or maybe saving a bunch of money, if you are looking at purchasing a home, you're going to want to check out our free PDF download on 21 grants and rebates for home buyers and owners that you can find in the description below this video. So last on our list is higher costs, and I'm not just talking about property costs. You probably already know that White Rock is incredibly expensive compared to most other areas of the Fraser Valley to not only live but to also own a home. But there's some costs that you might not be quite prepared for that I want to make sure you're aware of so they don't catch you off guard. Living in White Rock does come with a premium price tag, and that's not just for homes, because everyday costs like utilities, water, and property taxes can also break the bank. You see, White Rock is a small independent city, and while this gives it a unique charm, it also means residents shoulder higher costs to fund local infrastructure and services. Unlike Surrey, which benefits from a larger population and shared resources, White Rock has to manage its own water utility, policing, and city maintenance. If you don't account for these higher costs, they can certainly catch you off guard, and these do add up over time. Of course, this can affect everything from your monthly bills to your long-term financial planning, so you want to make sure you know the details and get it right off the bat. When we first moved to White Rock, it was a little bit of a wake-up call just because of how expensive everything was. We had to pay the utilities of the place that we were renting in, and between the utilities, the city taxes, the water bills, all this sort of thing, it adds up very fast. And I want to touch on the water real quick as well, because you may or may not have known this, but if you are moving to White Rock, there's something about the water that you need to know. White Rock's tap water can taste unpleasant due to a naturally occurring manganese in the Sunnyside Uplands aquifer, which feeds the city of White Rock's water, and the use of chlorination for disinfection, which can introduce a noticeable taste or odor. While the water is safe to drink, ongoing treatment efforts aim to reduce manganese levels and improve overall quality. So it just doesn't really always taste the best, something you need to be prepared for. And many of the residents like ourselves, well, we fill up the big water jugs at the Save On Foods and bring that home so we can have nice, fresh, good tasting drinking water. Back to the budget stuff though, and the cost of living in White Rock. How do you prepare for this, and how do you make sure you're getting into a situation where you are better prepared or best prepared for whatever your monthly carrying costs are going to be? Number 1, you're going to want to budget for higher utility bills, especially water, as White Rock runs its own water and utility system, which requires significant investments to both maintain and for its reliability. You're also going to want to understand property taxes, because they are higher in White Rock than they are in Surrey. These help fund local services, including infrastructure improvements that keep and allow the city to continue to run independently. And like any property taxes, you're definitely going to want to plan for annual increases, both in utilities and property taxes, just so you're not caught off guard. Hey, if you're thinking of moving to White Rock, you can get in touch with our team via the link below. But also, if you found this video helpful, useful, all we ask is that you give it a like to help other people like you who might be thinking of moving to the neighborhood to be able to find it as well. Help that YouTube algorithm have this helpful video find the people that need it. Of course, this doesn't have to be the end of your journey as well. If you're curious about what some of the better neighborhoods are in the city of White Rock and the area of South Surrey, if this is somewhere that you are looking at relocating, I'm going to see you over on the next video where I break down the top areas that you're going to want to live if you're looking at calling this place home. I'll see you over on the next video.